Hello, I'm Martin Godfrey. Let me introduce the WR600 WoodRat. We now produce two WoodRats, the 3-foot long WR900 and this, the WR600, which is 2 foot long and it's 600 millimeters, hence 600. 600 has evolved directly from its big brother to the extent that they share the same manual. Now, one of the most exciting capabilities is the simple way in which you can make dovetails with it. The two versions have different ways to cut dovetails normally, but interestingly, we use the same method for both the WR600 and for the 900 when it, 900, is working over 12 inches wide. So for 600 owners and WR900 owners too, when working large, let this short movie guide you through the process. Let's go. The base plate can be put into one of three positions. If it's in the forward position, push it back in the slots into the middle position and tighten. We have the router on its router plate, moving forwards and backwards, held by the center plate here. That allows the router to pivot and the plate to slide forwards and backwards. And the pivot point is controlled by the position of the button and its distance from the face of the machine. So the button controls the geometry of the whole joint. If the geometry of making pins is set by the button, the width of the pins is controlled by the spirals. Spirals move in on either side and lessen the angle, making the thinner pin, and then move out to make it wider. It's a sort of scissor action. We start by cutting the tail sockets, and they go straight. So this is a good time to set the left spiral so that the router runs straight at 90 degrees. I must keep the router against the spiral with a gentle but firm twist on it as I run forwards and back on the same track. And do not allow it to wander away from the spiral here. The handle moves the stock. Let's put a piece in and show you. Like that, pull with the fingers and push with the thumb, tighten this in. So it's moving left and right underneath, and the cursor is marking, tracking against this part of the machine face. So now here we have 4 pieces which constitute the 4 sides of the box. And the ends take the pins, they pin through this way, and the sides grab the pins. So the sides, if we put these pieces together in that direction, keep the direction that they will be in the box. We can mark out the sides with a pyramid. Probably that was when they invented this cunning method, when the pyramids were all the rage. And here another pyramid, like that. That gives us an idea. Say they all go on the floor and get muddled. You can see that at any point you can, not that way up, that way up, here. That must be that one. That's the point of the pyramid. And here we have the sides. That must be that way round. Good. So now we need to measure the thickness of the pin pieces to find out which dovetail bit we are going to use. I'll use the vernier calipers. They're the only ones that haven't run out of batteries. Just under 12 millimeters. Let's look at the 12/6 bit. Its name describes it exactly. That's WR for WoodRat, 8 is the shank size in millimeters, 7 is the shape. That is, it's a 1 in 7 sloped bit. And the last 2 numbers are 12 for the length of the blade and the end diameter of 6 millimeters. That 12 says that the blade length is just bigger than our wood thickness, which is just what we need. And park it here for the minute. So if I take this and we track it out here. We can mark out our wood wherever we need to with just a pencil, but for even spacing we have our secret weapon, one parallelogram. And it doesn't matter how narrow or wide your board is, you can get a good indication of what these positions are going to look like as you try it out. So 5 I reckon is good. Mark out either side of these bars. That's where the tail sockets and also the pins are going to go. Now we can set the button. And for that we need the straight bit to go with the dovetail bit. Try the half-inch bit, it's almost always the trusty half-inch bit. See that it'll fit comfortably between these pins, and so we can pair the half-inch bit and the 6mm dovetail together, and that will give us the button position. Here's the chart. There's the half-inch bit, and there's the 12/6. So if we read along here, we come to 65.5. So that means that the button needs to be placed 65mm from the face of the machine. Register the router plate by pushing it back against the orange stop, and because we're in the middle position here, we use the middle little tick as the cursor. For an 8mm shanked bit, we'll need the 8mm bronze reducing sleeve, and that goes in like that, and the 2 slots are lined up, okay, so then we can tighten it. So that's the cutter sorted. Now we can depth the dovetail bit by gauging the space under the depthing foot with the piece for pins, which is the piece we are not going to cut. And when we drop the cutter, it will cut the sockets to the right depth for the pin pieces. The parallelogram has given us where to cut the joints, but we need to get more exact. We can see under here, as the bit is positioned over the marks, one after another, we can register all those 5 pin or pin socket positions onto the face of the machine. And this is what we call back registration, from the marked up wood back to the machine face. And we've got to educate the machine a bit and make it useful. So now we can do some cutting. We take 2 pieces for tails, as they can be cut together. Together they are inside to inside, like that. And if we drop this one and flip it up again, sort of somersault it, we now have a different configuration. And we put it in this way. So now the 2 inside faces are facing out towards us, and they can go in together and they tighten in. This is one way to lessen the danger of breakout, but it's not the only reason for doing this. And now we can cut them. Our first cut is a trim cut on the edge clockwise, and then it's brought to the line. Line it up exactly as the line starts to show under the cursor. And the second cut, and so on. After the first pair of ends, cartwheel the boards together and cut the other end in the same sequence. Remember to trim the edges clockwise or you'll get a nasty tear out on the edge. And now there's the 2 ends done, 4 corners done with tails. Before you dismantle anything, track the wood back to the first position and bring the router forwards, push the test stick under it and run it away. Squeeze the stick up a fraction and tighten it in. Now cut it with 2 shallow grooves at position 1 and position 2. So that's given us 2 shallow grooves on the top of the stick so that we can see them from above, and they are the same size as the bottoms of the dovetail sockets. Put them back in. Pull with the fingers, push with the thumb and tighten up under the plate, and we're ready to move on to the next stage, which is to take out the dovetail bit and replace it with the straight. This is the muscle chuck. It's an essential luxury, this muscle chuck, and by that I mean that you could do without it, but if you lost it you would certainly buy another. Before cutting the test stick, we must first use the piece we've already cut with the tails, the piece we are going to go through to gauge the depth for the straight cutter. There we go. We've already set the position of the button. We now need the spiral positions. Now the blades are set east-west, and we can move the router over to the right. Its left-hand blade is now just touching the top right corner of the groove. And we can bring in the spiral. And we do the same with the other side, with the right-hand blade touching the top left corner of the groove. And we bring in the spiral. And since we've already depthed it, we can drop the router bit and switch on. That's a right hand cut for the first position. Move to the second and we do a right hand cut and a left hand cut. Now the test stick should fit with the top left hand corner board, and well, that's a little tight. We can take each spiral in a fraction, say 1 tick each side, and by the way, you need never worry if the 2 readings here are not the same. If they are a little bit out, you'll never notice the different angle, but you will notice if it's too loose. We've cut it again, and now it fits. Now let's make the runner pins. The first cut is a right cut on position 1. Track to the next line. Position 2 is a right and then a left. Position 3 is a right and then a left. Then position 4, right, left. For the last, the 5th, there is only a left. The last is only a left. A little mantra. Remember it. Now what have we got? The fit is fine, but we have a bit of nasty breakout as the bit comes through the wood. It's more serious here than with the tail sockets because it's on the outside. Because we can attack the wood from both sides, we can cut from the front first, and then when we cut from the back, you'll see there's nothing to break out. So just push the bit in, not quite half the bit diameter, with a pre-cut this way. A right hand side and a left hand side, and then a little movement along the front, down cutting as clockwise as it goes, and again. and again, and the last is only a left. Undoubtedly this is quicker and more sure than the two usual ways of dealing with breakout, putting tape on across the back and backing pieces. And the worst thing is a cut line. This really encourages tear out on the back of the pins there. As you can see, the WoodRat 600 doesn't work like a jig. The very flexibility that so confuses people who are used to jigs allows you to work with not just variable spacing, but at the extremes, very large and very small, and of course all the different dovetail angles of the WoodRat cutter range. Once you understand through dovetails, you will find that you can easily make half-blind dovetails for drawers, secret dovetails, and end-to-end dovetails, and so on. Thanks for watching. Keep checking the web. This is work in progress.